This is page 78 of your math journal. We're going to call this one the distributive property. Okay, we talked about the other properties yesterday, but this one is a little bit different because this one involves both multiplication and addition or subtraction. Okay, so the distributive property says that you can distribute multiplication to all the terms in a group. So maybe some better words for that. Let's write distributive property is to multiply a sum, which means addition, or difference, within a set group using parentheses or brackets, or let's just say using grouping symbols. By distributing the multiplication to each term. Okay, now let's see an example of this. So let's say I have 2 parentheses 5 plus 6. Well, let's write this in words. So here is my expression. In words, this would mean 2 groups of 5 and 6. So inside I have a group of 5 and 6, but I have 2 of those groups. So I want to show you what this would mean. It's like me saying 2 times 5 plus 6. If I were to do that, I'm going to just show you what 2 groups would look like. So I have this group, and I have this group. So together, I would also have 2 groups of 5 and 2 groups of 6. This would be the distributive property. What it means is I can take this number that's on the outside and multiply it to each term inside the parentheses. So what you're commonly going to see will be something like this. 2 times 5 plus 6. They show these lines of distributing. So I'm showing that I can do that as 2 times 5 plus 2 times 6. Okay, now that would also give me 10 plus 12, which is 22. But this is using the distributive property. Okay, these are all just the same example. I'm just showing many ways to look at it. So, if you have something like this, 3a plus b. This would mean I have 3 groups of A and B. In parentheses, I'm going to put those together because this is what's in a group. So I can say that's the same as having, this is where we're going to show our distributing. I can do 3 times A, which would mean I would have 3 A's plus 3 B's. Okay, with variables, this is as far as we can go. So it's the same as 3A plus 3B. This is using numbers, so this was a numerical expression. This would be a variable expression, or an algebraic expression. Okay, let's try another one. What if we had 5x minus 2. Okay, if I'm going to distribute here, it means I have 5 groups of x subtract 2. So that means I have 5 groups of x. I will also have 5 groups of subtracting 2. So we're going to distribute 5 times x minus 5 times 2. So at the end of my story, sorry, I should have written this as 5 times 2. 5 times x minus 5 times 2, and that would give me 5x minus 5 times 2 is 10. So at the end of the story, I have 5 x's, and I'm taking away 10 overall. Okay, that's a distributive property. Now we can also go backwards. Sometimes you might need to factor. Okay, so right here I want you to draw a star, and I want you to write factoring. Is separating into equal groups using the distributive property. All right, so let's factor these examples. Okay, if I have 25 plus 60, and it asked me to factor them, I want to look at both of these and say, okay, what's the largest amount of groups I can make out of this one and this one, but they both could do it. So I'm actually looking for my greatest common, well, factor. So 25 and 60 both share 5 in common. That would be the largest number that goes into both of them. So if I were making 5 groups, how many would be in each group from this? Well, 25 divided into 5 equal groups would give me 5 here. See how what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going backwards in the distributive property. Plus, if I split this into 5 groups, that would give me 12. So how would I use this? Imagine maybe this was, I have 25 apples and 60 oranges, and I'm making gift baskets. How many can I make with the same amount in each one? Well, I can make a maximum of 5 groups if they're going to be equal. This one would have 5 apples, and this would have 12 oranges in it. Okay, we can also do the same thing with variables. Let's say I have 8b minus 16. Okay, looking at these, greatest common factor they share in common. 8 and 16 would be 8. So I can make 8 groups. But now I have to think backwards. 8 times what gives me 8b? Well, b minus, because they have to match, 8 times what gives me 16? 2. If I want to check myself, I can multiply backwards. 8 times b is 8b minus 8 times 2 is 16. So this is simplified. This is factored. Okay, where in the world would this be useful? Well, let's say I want to have a mental trick to find, let's do this, let's say find 33 times 9 using the distributive property. Okay, this is a trick to help you figure stuff out like this in your head. Okay, I can't easily do that in my head. However, I can think of something that I could split 33 into. Are you okay if I split 33 into 30 plus 3? But remember, this whole thing was times by 9. So this is how I can use the distributive property to figure this out. You actually have been using the distributive property like when you did the box method for multiplication. Right here, all I did was split this apart. So 9 times 30 plus 9 times 3. Should be using dots for my time. Sorry about that. So 9 times 30 is 270 plus 27. Well, that gives me 297. But that helped make it a little easier on me. Okay, let's do another one. Find 38 times 6. Okay, I could split this to 30 plus 8. I could also think a different way. What's another way I can make 38? What about 40 minus 2? Isn't that 38? Okay, times 6. Notice this is just a multiplication again. So I can do 6 times 40 minus 6 times 2. My distributive property. 6 times 40 is 240. Minus 6 times 2 is 16. From there, 40 minus 16 would be 24. So that gives me 224. So that's one way you can use the distributive property to kind of make things easier. Some of these I could even do in my head if I wanted to. So all this is about is knowing how the distributive property works. At the very bottom, I want you to write clue words for distributive property. Okay? Clue that you're using the distributive property. Is using both multiplication, okay, in big bold letters, both multiplication and addition or subtraction. Okay, but the big clue is both. Notice how up here I'm multiplying as well as having addition in there, or as well as doing subtraction.